fresh book, Ratan Tata, a very engaging session because it will offer us icon, and also because Dr. Thomas Matthew has spent something like 140 amazing hours doing in-person interviews with Ratan Tata himself. So I'm sure he's going to have a treasure trove of nuggets to share with us. So welcome to the session, Dr. Matthew, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you very much.
As you can see, we have a full house for your session, so I think without further ado, let's just dive into the conversation, shall we?
Please.
So Dr. Matthew, let me start with the birds of Rashtrapati Bhavan, biography of Ratan Tata, no less.
Thank you, Rachna. The first comment I have to make is, in life, we always shift gears. How can you always travel in the first gear? So you go on a cruise, you go to third gear, fourth gear. Now with Mr. Tata, it was not shifting gears. It was a natural progression. I was very fortunate to know Mr. Tata for the last 3 decades. And, you know, the conversations as we met evolved, and this biography is happen chance. Not ordained, not predetermined, not planned. I see Mr. Sarna here. My son is also in the foreign service. And he insisted one day when we were in Mumbai that he should meet Mr. Tata to see if he's the real Tata, to touch and feel if he's the real man. Because I'd been speaking about him several times. So we went to his house, and lucky enough, he was insisting, so I called him. I said, sir, can we come over? And you know the polite, very humble man he is. He turned around and said, Thomas, if you have the time, come over for dinner. You know, my son was cock-a-hoop about it. And he and Mr. Tata kept talking. I kept listening. He gave him snippets of his life. It was so interesting. I said, the world should know about him. And I knew there's a lot the world should know about him. Then I turned around and asked him at the end of about 3 hours, I said, sir, are you not planning to write your autobiography? He says, no, Thomas, I can't do it. If you want to take a chance, you write the bio. I did not ask him a second time, you know, because he's a very reticent man. You praise him, and he'll become cherubic and start biting his lips as if somebody has beat him. You know? So that's the kind of man he is. He will do anything. He will do everything for you. But you ask him something where his contribution being garguntan, he will turn down and say, no, Thomas, I'm not the person who did it. There are so many other people who contributed to it. So that's how this biography started. And since time is short, go ahead, ma'am. We will go on talking about his day.
Like you said, Ratan Tata is a legend, and there's lots to talk about him. So I'll continue the same thread of thought. Now, the Tata has been a household name for as long as I can remember. And Ratan Tata, of course, has been at the helm of the Tata Group for more than 3 decades. So we are all somewhat familiar with some of the initiatives and achievements of this great man. But you would have had a grandstand view of Ratan Tata, the industrialist, Ratan Tata, the visionary leader, not only because you spent those 140 hours with him, but also because you interacted with him for almost 3 decades, you said, in your official capacity. So tell us, what are the qualities of this industrialist and visionary leader that, you know, really stood out for you?
These questions will take probably about 3 days.
Yes, I can
to give me a satisfactory answer.
True.
Pardon me if I explain myself in staccato points. There is no other way to explain or try to answer these questions. Right. There's many number of questions she's asked. Number one, what is so unique about Ratan? The point is everything is unique about him. That's one. Number two, what is extraordinary about him? Everything about him is extraordinary. He is so humble. He's got so much of empathy, sympathy, compassion, and his outlook is so egalitarian that every time you go to his house during meal hours, the people who will be having meal with him is his butler's daughter sitting with him and having meal. Can you imagine in a society I'm not going to criticize Chandigarh because my brother-in-law used to be in the IPS in Haryana cadre. I've seen the elitism in Haryana. Can you imagine your butler's daughter sitting with you at the dining table? So that's the kind of man he is. Now, as an industrialist, let me tell you something which will shock you. Mr. Tata was a very reticent man. He never claimed any fame, but there was one advantage, that the man was underestimated. And that stood to his advantage. Let me give you one point. Now, from 1992 to 2012, when he was at the helm for over 21 years, the top line of the Tata Group grew by 1,742%.
Amazing.
Now, when I told him this, and I compared him with Jack Welch of GE, Jack Welch of GE was known as a captain of the industry, captain of the century, categorized by Forbes magazine and the Economist as such. Now, let's look at something very interesting. And he was declared as the leader, industrial leader of the century. Now, he grew his company from somewhere around, that is GE, from 27 to $130 billion. It's about 330%. So in comparison, Mr. Tata's top line growth during the same phase almost, he was there at about for about 18, 19 years. Mr. Tata was there for about 21 odd years. So you're comparing 1,742% was about 340%. And yet he was declared as the man of the century in terms of as an industry leader. So who do you blame? So I told Mr. Tata, I said, sir, you are at fault. You don't speak about it. He said, Thomas, why are you making comparisons? See, that's the kind of man he was. He was shy, but his contributions have been phenomenal. Everybody knows about Tata Motors, okay? I surprised him with numbers. He took over Tata Motors as chairman. Just give you an example. I'm not going to go further into it.
Right.
He's got a lot of numbers in it.
Right.
He took over Tata Motors in 1988 from the legendary Sumant Malgokar. And up to 2016, he stepped down in 2012. I took the data up to 2016 because in 2008, you had the economic contraction, the global contraction. So when there's a global contraction, it takes about 5-6 years for it to touch the figures or come to the growth pre-crisis. So I told Mr. Tata, I said, sir, do you know what has been the percentage growth top line of Tata Motors during your phase? You won't believe me, he didn't know it. And honestly, not even one Tata CEO, any of the CEOs, Tata Motors, Tata Steel, Tata Chemicals, nobody knew. And even Mr. Tata did not know. And you know how much it was? Can anybody make a guess? Top line growth. I'm sure a lot of, make a guess. Okay. It was almost 19,642%. Can you imagine?
Oh my God. Amazing.
I told him. He says, no, Thomas, it can't be true. I said, sir, I said, okay, let's wager. Give me a blank check. He said, that I won't give you. Because you always said you number crunch. So that's a great man. And more than that, let me tell you something. His focus on philanthropy.
Yes.
Is amazing in the sense, I don't want to take you back to history, but I'll do for a minute. Now, philanthropy. Feed the poor, cloth those who wear rags. He says that you will allow him only to live a day or two. So they were looking at a holistic development of society. The concept which Jamshedji had sown was taken to a completely different level by Mr. Tata. Why? Mr. Tata, during his study in the US, developed a kind of scientific temper, a deep knowledge of science, that he started harnessing the potential of science for philanthropy. I'll just give you 2 instances and stop. I don't know if there's a doctor here. You know this Telsa 3 machines manufactured by 2 of the largest GE and Siemens in the world? What they do is they come back and take your old machine and they'll give you a new machine which will be about 3 times the cost. So Mr. Tata said that doesn't make sense. So what did he do? he got in touch with MIT. He started a Tata MIT Center, told them that start producing or give us the technology or let there be a transfer of technology to have Tesla 1.5, which will cover 90% of the needs of the largest section of the population of the country. For instance, in the villages. And he got it done. Today, you have Tesla 1.5, which is about 1/6 or 1/8 of the cost. So therefore, the coverage which the Indian villagers did not get was suddenly given by Mr. Tata. Right. Second, and I'll stop here. You won't even imagine. There's a huge funding of $75 million he gave to UCSD San Diego. For what? For changing the DNA of the mosquito. Yes, he said because malaria is still a problem in this country. Although the incidence is coming down, we had about 10 million cases, I think, in 2017 when I last checked the data. And plus, 90% of our population is vulnerable to malaria because of the location that they stay. So this is what he has done. And they've almost succeeded in it. And at the same time, there were these environmentalists who came and said, you cannot make such changes. But then they also evolved a technique which will reverse that. So that's the kind of philanthropy you're looking at, which will make large-scale changes in the society. And it is not Mr. Tata alone. I'm not a Parsi, but I'll tell you something. There is something about Parsis. Parsis would like to give. I'll just take a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi says, in numbers, they are beneath contempt, but in contribution, they are above praise. That is what he said.
So no wonder
So it is something which is ethical. There is something ingrained in the religion because according to Zoroastrianism, there's a concept called salvation. Salvation means just do the right things, make money, make it the right way, but use it for the societal purposes. Stop it at that, but Mr. Tata took it to a completely different level.
So no wonder he was called the compassionate capitalist. And you've talked about the makeover that he gave philanthropy, which you're talking about. So when we talk about, Ratan Tata, the compassionate soul, I think the narrative would be incomplete if we didn't talk about the 26/11 terrorist attack and all that he did to assuage the suffering and pain of those who lost their loved ones. And you've talked about that in your book. You've talked at length about the anguish that he felt, So would you like to talk a little about the emotional toll that it took on this compassionate man?
See, in 2015, even when he looked back, he said it was a life-changing moment. For instance, that chapter on 26/11 is called the life-changing moment.
Yes, yes.
He stood outside the Taj that was burning. He wanted to go inside, but the police stopped and said, if the terrorists got him, they would have got the biggest prize in the world. So they said no. So they stopped him. And what did he do? He kept standing outside, feeding the dogs, until every guest, as he calls them, all of them were evacuated from the hotel. Until then, he was standing outside. Okay. Now, Mr. Tata was a very fiercely patriotic man. He said the attack was not an attack on Taj or Mumbai, but against the very concept of India. So therefore, we suddenly saw the defiant side of Mr. Tata. Okay? You ought to know something. There's a calm demeanor hides a very steely resolve. You do something unethical, you do something wrong in the company, he'll do everything in the world to correct it. And there you will see no compassion. Because he believes that if there's a wrong done in the society, it can have an effect throughout the society. And it can corrupt the minds of people. So therefore, I'll just give you one instance and stop here. Dilip Fense, who was this blue-eyed boy in Tata Finance, he was involved in this corruption about 700 crores. He filed case against him. Unfortunately, the pressure on him was so much that he finally commits a suicide. And Mr. Tata never forgave him because he says you are playing with the money of poor depositors. But he ensured, although it was a separate entity, though Tata Sons was not obliged by law to compensate the depositors, he paid back every person, including the last paisa. He says, it's a trust which the people have reposed in us. Okay, with regard to 2611, it took a huge emotional toll on him. I'll just give you 2 instances and stop. I interviewed virtually 20, 25 people affected in the 2611, from drivers to those people who lost their husband. And, give you 2 instances. There is this lady called Sunu Verghese. Her husband was a trade unionist, but working in the restaurant called Wasabi. She lost her husband. And Mr. Tata, after the 6th or 8th day, said, I am going to meet everybody who lost their loved ones. So they were called to the President Hotel, and at 10 o'clock, after he met all of them, came this lady, Sunu Verghese. Okay. Sunu Verghese came, and she was desperate. She had her husband's mother, okay, who was so unwell, and just 2 kids, one called Reinel, who was in class 9, and Welsi, he was in BSc nursing. So he went, and he says, for the first time I saw Mr. Tata, everybody was talking about him, but I've never seen him before. So in front of me, I'm a poor widow, look at me, planning to pack my bags and go to Kerala after burying my husband. And she said, I was going to implement it. Then Mr. Tata turned around and told her that you don't have to worry. She said, I've lost everything in my life. There is no way I can bring up my children. I'm packing and go home. And for me, the future is blank as blank can be. Mr. Tata turned around and told her, from today onwards, you don't belong to Kerala, you belong to the Tata family. Till you are alive, we will take care. And I'll tell you something very interesting. Then Mr. Tata and Mr. Krishna Kumar turned around and asked Reinel, what will you like to do? He said, my father always wanted me to be a chef and study in this Indian Hotel Management Institute, that Institute of Hotel Management in Aurangabad. Very expensive. So Krishna Kumar and Mr. Tata turned around and told him, go get good grades and we will see what will happen. He got good grades. The Tata Welfare Fund financed him completely. And he passed out from there with flying colors, got a scholarship to Australia. And when he got the scholarship, he was short of about 10 lakhs. He wrote a letter to Mr. Tata, and the same day went a check of 10 lakhs. So Sunu turns on and tells me, sir, do you know something? My son is now in Melbourne. My other son is working in Ireland. And she says, you would not understand. I have not seen God, but that day I saw God in him. Second, just one more, and then I'll stop. There was, I'm not talking about a Tata employee. There is this family called Chemburkar, which is opposite hotel, that's Oberoi Trident. He was shot dead. 10-year-old daughter. Again, aged father and mother. She didn't know what to do. So Tata's funds, that is the Tata Trust, that is a Taj Trust, reached out to her and said, we will provide you all the facilities to educate your children. We'll give you pension, and we will ensure that we'll take care of your health till you're alive. And that girl wanted to do, this beautician's course. She did it. And then she says, I want to study to be an air hostess. She became an air hostess. Taj paid for it. Then she said, I want to be a pilot. Taj said, okay, go study to be a pilot. And today she flies Indigo.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful.
I mean, there are so many stories like this.
Right,
I almost got beaten up by somebody. Okay, I'll tell you why. There was this a person who was working for Kama Hospital called Vagela. Young guy, he was about 24, 25. You remember Kasab, who was finally put to death?
Of course. Yeah.
Kasab went to his house after his first section of shooting spree, went to his house and asked for water. This guy, Vagela, gave him water. Asked second time. After drinking the water the second time, he split him into two with his AK-47. And Vagela, his wife, Karuna, she almost lost it, like every wife would, or any partner would, whether it's husband or wife. So I interviewed her. So she was going through psychiatric treatment. So she turned on and told me, sir, then I said, madam, please tell me, what do I write in the book, how you felt about Tata? So he said, what, she was very, she was very emotional. She was very sharp. She turned on and said, आप क्या बात कर रहे हो? वो तो भगवान है. So I said, ma'am, how can I write that in the book? You know what she said? She got up from the chair, threw the bottle of water and walked out. I had to go, apologize to her, get her a Coke, and virtually, I had to mollycoddle her for 2 hours before she came back. Because I didn't want her. So that's the kind of things what Mr. Tata did.
So, sir, shall we switch gears a little bit? The atmosphere is becoming a little somber with the talk about the terrorist attack.
Sure.
So let's talk about Ratan Tata, the fun-loving young man who sort of went into the air with his aircraft and turned off the engine for a free fall.
That's
so when you met Ratan Tata, did he retain that playfulness, that spirit of adventure that he had as a young man? So tell us a little about that.
I originally met him in 1994 when he was at the acme of his power.
Right.
6'2", hazel eyes, melding the colors of green, gold, and brown. Every lady, this is not a sexist statement. Every lady in touch told me they used to, even if they were on leave, they used to cut short the leave and come and see when Mr. Ratan would enter the hotel. And they say, we all got weak knees. Everybody. Right. They were, they didn't hold on to any of their emotions. They just said it.
So,
see, that's the kind of man you're talking about, okay? And was he a prankster? Amazing, you won't believe. I interviewed Henry Kissinger. And I was with him for about 2.5 hours in New York. Henry Kissinger were extremely good friends. So this, Mr. Tata is a mimicry master. If he were not born to the Tata family, I think he would have been a mimicry man. So I spoke to him in, Henry Kissinger in New York. After that, I flew to Albuquerque to meet some of his classmates from Cornell. So what did he do? He picked up the phone and he told me that I was planning to come to US. So Henry Kissinger has this gravelly voice. So from the phone, he says, Dr. Matthew, this is Kissinger. So I said, this is Mr. Tata's phone. So I thought he must be meeting a Kissinger. So I said, sir, I was not expecting a call. Then he changed his voice. He said, Thomas, you can't even recognize my voice. See, you don't expect a call from Henry Kissinger on the phone. Neither do you expect a call from Mr. Tata, just like that. So that's the kind of man, he was a prankster. My most interesting instances, I need to tell you this. Jahangir Baba, the brother of this famous nuclear scientist, who is a board member of Tata Sons. Tata Sons is like a conglomerate. Please understand one thing. The turnover of Tata Group is more than the 48th country's GDP in the world. I did that comparison. So can you imagine? The chairman Tata Sons was accosted by an attendant when Ms. Tata had got a water pistol, okay, and was aiming at the chair of Jahangir Baba where he would sit. Because Jahangir Baba was slightly, rotund. So he says he used to sleep half the time. So he says when he used to sleep, he wanted to pull the trigger and wet his pants. So there was this attendant who suddenly found that near the board meeting chair where the chair was supposed to be sitting, there was a man whose half body was under the table. The attendant virtually pulled him up and they found it was Mr. Tata himself. So that's the kind of things he's prankster. Perhaps he was a child at times. You know, innocent heart, no evil mind, will never think bad about anybody. So that's this man.
So thanks to your book, in fact, Dr. Matthew, Ratan Tata is emerging as a, regular man, a human being, instead of that industrialist that we'd always,
Yeah, but regular man, I don't know.
into.
Regular man, I don't know. But with regard to prankster, I think
He
he's
was
like
very
us.
playful,
But otherwise,
yes.
he's completely different.
Yes. So,
Please, ma'am.
so Dr. Matthew, much that I would like to continue with this very interesting and delightful conversation. I think we are running out of time.
Sure.
So I'm going to quickly conclude the conversation with one last short question.
Sure, please.
So in your author's note, you say that ideally speaking, this biography should have been in 2 volumes. So do we expect to see volume 2 of this book in the bookstores soon?
Not volume 2. This is an abridged version.
Okay.
This is an abridged version because this man has done so much.
Right.
In the 21 years he was the chairman. So much he has done for society. It is not possible to narrate all the lessons which should be lodestar for the nation and for the society.
Absolutely.
In 800 or 900 pages.
You're right.
So there is a collector's edition. There's about 1,400 pages.
Oh.
Because the people, that is especially the youngsters, should be inspired by his life, his
Right.
compassion, that it's not all about being selfish. I'll stop with one sentence, okay?
Right.
The last sentence of my book, if I remember correctly, is this. I said, when the personality of this private man called Ratan is unpeeled for history, the world would see a man who is a fierce capitalist, but with an implacable socialist heart.
Right.
I think this perhaps...
That's a perfect way to describe him, I think. Yes, absolutely. So thank you
you,
so much, Dr.
Thank you,
Matthew,
ma'am.
for
Thank you
this
very much.
wonderful conversation and such a beautifully well-researched book.
Thank you very much.
It has unveiled for us a different kind of Ratan Tata. Thanks
Thank
to
you,
you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now I think it's your turn. Do we have time for
yes,
a
please.
Q&A
Yes,
session?
we do have some time available still. We can have the
Right.
Q&A session.
So, ladies and gentlemen in the audience, I'm sure Dr. Matthew would be happy to respond to any
Sure,
questions
any question.
that you would like to raise.
I
I
can
think
somebody
we'll need
give
a
a
mic.
mic? Can
Can
somebody
someone
give
get
a
a
mic?
mic to him, please?
I can hear you. Go ahead, please. Okay, 2 questions. One is that Jaguar. Second is about Nano. Jaguar was a roaring success as much as the Jaguar roared. He snapped the marquee brands of UK, the weakness of the royal family. So don't you like it, Alabak tragedy? Aren't you happy that an Indian owns a brand which is a weakness of the British royal family? That for every occasion, I'm sorry, ma'am, if you come from UK, but I was just reminding ourselves of Indian history and what it means for us. And I'll tell you something. When Mr. Tata acquired Jaguar, they said an Indian company, go back to, cross the Atlantic, go to the United States. You had Ken Gorin, the chairman of the Jaguar Motors Dealers Association in the US, saying, India is a nation of bicyclists. They cannot own marquee brands. And Mr. Tata proved all of them wrong. And today, it's one of the best brands in the world. That's number one. Number two, with regard to nano, I will have a private conversation with you. I will not accept the narrative that nano is a failure. Nano is a marketing failure. Please understand. But the nano which Mr. Tata wanted to bring to the society was in order to fill a void and to provide a safe transportation for the lower middle class and the middle class. Did he succeed? Yes. Because nano triggered what's called the nano revolution, the frugal engineering. What did it lead to? These are not my words. Gough Waddell of the Design Bureau in Pasadena, the best design bureau, says it started a new revolution. All the other countries in the world started picking up this concept. And today we have cheap cars as expensive as only $2,500. And he succeeded in bringing that car, this concept that fills a void. Therefore, it is a success. I'll put it like that.
We will take another question.
Okay, I've got the mic.
The last question, please, because we are really running out of time here.
My name is Lalit Verma. I used to work for the Tatas.
Oh,
yes.
Which company, sir?
I was with Tata Steel.
Tata Steel.
But with Rusi Modi, and then had
okay.
an opportunity to also be with J.R.D. Tata and as well as Ratan Tata, and also with Jack Welch. But you have compared Jack Welch with Ratan Tata. What would be very interesting for me to know from you is that, though I know comparison is not reason, what was Jamshedji Nusrajan Tata, what was J.R.D. Tata, and compared to that, what was Ratan Tata? I'm sure they had common traits. I know that all used what is known as a smile to work. I would like to hear from you, what are the comparison highlights and qualities of the three and the progress that they have given to the country?
No, very tough question.
Going to be a
very tough question. But I'll just put it in 2 sentences and conclude this.
Right.
They were the legends of their time. Comparisons will be misplaced over here. But there is a comparison I've made over in this book, not because I loved Mr. Tata or I respected him so much, not because of that reason. I have made a very bold statement. I may be beaten up for it, but it doesn't matter. I have ways Mr. Tata has done for the nation and Tata more than the founder has done, because he has brought Tata and India to the world and to a larger population than Jamshedji was able to do it by bringing industry within this nation. People may consider it as too strong a statement, but I'll stand by it. And Mr. Tata took the conglomerate to a different level. Let me put it like this. He evolved it to a very, very different level. But everybody played their sterling role in the development of the country, development of the industries in this nation.
So one last question from the younger generation.
Sure. Please. I'd love to hear that question, ma'am.
Yes. So we generally idolize Mr. Tata, like we take him as role model, as a motivation. So was there someone or something that made him motivated, like he followed something or someone, like to go on his path, something that motivated him specially? Can you please tell us?
See, single motivation was his grandmother, Lady Navjbai Tata. She says she was a rock, and I learned all my principles, my values by sitting at her feet. And she was a lady who was ramrod straight, who would never accept anything unethical in life. She says there has to be compassion, there has to be empathy, and you will have to work and live for those principles and not your personal principles.
The Tata Group definitely is a family, and we see that a lot of their employees are here, and today we also welcome the cluster GM of Taj Chandigarh, Mr. Paramveer Singh, and along with other senior management members from the staff. Please, I would request you to come on stage, and maybe we can honor them here and meet the author. This is the hallmark of a true leader, that his family is paying their tribute on the launch of the book on his name. A round of applause, please.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being such a wonderful audience. And once again, let's just give it up for Dr. Thomas Matthew.
Thank you very much, Chandigarh Literature Society. I'm more than honored to have had this opportunity to share my views on this icon of the world, as I will describe it. Thank you very much. I'm honored and humbled for this opportunity. Thank you.
I would also take the opportunity to thank Mr. Matthew for such a lovely book.